Hey, John. I have to move some ZBA members over, came in as attendees.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Rich, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Okay.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening. How are you?
Lovely.
Great.
Hey, Jason.
Howdy,
Good to
all.
see you, Jason.
It's because
Hey,
I
Dylan.
have-
Hey,
I have
John.
my camera off. I spend all day on
Hey, Rich.
Here we go again. Brady Bunch squares.
Yeah.
Just
Hollywood-
can't
Hollywood
escape
squares?
it. Yep. No matter how hard I try, I just cannot escape it.
Oh, well,
Should be
You gotta-
grateful. At least we got this.
once you retire, you get away from a lot of that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
This big muscle runs from your shoulder to your right. No. See.
So we just have Ned.
Did Ned say he was coming?
Yeah,
Well-
I spoke with him today.
Okay.
yeah, I did too, yeah. Bumped into him, as a matter of fact. He and I visited the two sites today and at the same time, but except that he was at one, I was at the other, and then we went the other way. We bumped into each other on Whedon Lane. So,
Here's Ned.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
Is he here?
Yes,
Okay, good.
7:04, we can, Ned, you can start whenever. Ned, you with us?
Ned, you're muted.
Start.
I can't, I'm at the top of the screen. I didn't see.
Ned, you're muted.
gotta look at the bottom left of your screen and hit the
I got
video.
it. I got it. There you go.
Hit the video
Okay.
one too, so. Hit
I
the
think
start
his
video
video is
button
on.
too.
His video is on. I think his camera's just off.
It could be.
No. I don't know. Well, let's see. Video? Nothing. I'm sorry. I can't get the video working.
So we'll have to do without your lovely face.
Well, that's okay. You saw me today.
I did. I saw you today. It was,
Okay, let's try it again. I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 12th, 2022 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Just go through some basic housekeeping things before we start. We have, let's see, John, how many, or Maria, how many members are here tonight?
6.
We have 6, and who is the additional? I only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Jason,
6, okay, I have
Bill,
6,
then it's
okay.
you.
Only one not coming.
Okay, so let's see, Dennis is here. Is Bill Biggett here?
I'm here.
Oh, you are, okay, I didn't see you on my screen. Oh, there you are, down in the corner, okay. So we have regular members are Bill Piggott, William Piggott. Dennis, you're a regular member now. Dennis Crow, Jason Brown, Richard Gilbert, myself, Ned Moore, Edwin Moore, And we do also have, we had somebody else?
An alternate, Dylan Stella.
Is
Dylan.
Dylan here? Okay, I thought I did see him, but I've just got a new computer, so I'm just getting used to this thing. So in order to have a application pass, we need a majority of votes. 4 votes will win a 4-to-1 vote will pass an application, but if you're unsure, you can withdraw it before we start the hearing. Maria Petrola is our clerk this evening, and she'll be reading the meeting call. All items that are turned in, all items presented before the board will have to be turned in and marked as exhibits. You have an opportunity to withdraw prior to the start of the meeting before to withdraw. Otherwise, you will have to present. Anybody who is going to be addressing the board, we'd like to have you at least the first time you're speaking and all future times, present your name, give your name and address. And with that, I'd like to ask Maria to read the roll or call of the meeting tonight.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The applications being heard tonight. First application number 8261 11 Conestoga Drive, map 48, lot 15, R1 district, owner and applicant Moen Sreevenson. Request to vary Madison zoning regulation 3.6D, 25-foot side yard west setback, east and west where 30 is required for a tennis court, and 3.6D, 25-foot side yard setback, east and west where 30 is required for a 10-foot high fence. The second application being heard tonight is 8262 50 Whedon Lane, map 25, lot 55, R2 district, owner Joanne Lynch, applicant Michael Farmer. Request to vary Madison zoning regulation section 11.1 to allow an accessory building in a front yard. We will first hear application number 8261 11 Conestoga Drive.
And who will be presenting for 8261?
Attorney Casella.
Is Attorney Casella here?
He's got his hand raised.
Where is his hand? I don't see it in the chat.
He just been on mute.
He's got to unmute.
Or did you have to invite him as a?
There he is.
Hi,
Who's
good
that?
evening. I'm Ed Casella with an address of 29 Elm Street, Old Saybrook, Connecticut, and I represent the property owners Moen Sreenivasan and Randy Calabrese. They are also online. Could we have them admitted into
They're
the
being
meeting?
promoted. It just takes a sec.
Okay, thank you. I'll give it a minute. Okay, I think we're in place. If there's anybody else that would like to speak, we'll ask you to promote them at the appropriate time. Again, thank you. My name is Ed Casella, attorney in Old Saybrook, representing Mohan and Randy, who are both now on the call. And we are here for variance for their property that they own, live at 11 Conestoga Drive in Madison. This property is located off Yankee Peddler Path on the north side of Conestoga and on the southern side of Connecticut Turnpike, Route 95. Property is currently improved with a 4-bedroom colonial style house on 43,000 square feet, basically an acre of land. They're in the process of constructing a number of improvements to the home, including a new pool. And the reason why we're here tonight, they're hoping to complete the construction of a tennis court at the rear of their property. As stated in the application and on the call, they're seeking variances of section 3.6D of the Madison zoning regulations, which are the side yard setbacks, in order to accommodate the proposed 40-foot by 100-foot tennis court with the proposed 10-foot high fence. If I could, I'll share my screen if that's okay. Can you see the plan?
Yes.
Is that up there?
Yes.
Okay. As I said, the property is located on Conestoga Drive. Just to orient you with this plan, Conestoga is to the right, which is south. Route 95 is to the left, which is north. The Dornick property is located on top of the screen, which is east. And the Gunn property is located to the west, which is on the bottom of the plan. The house is located in the front portion of the property. And the proposed tennis court is located along the rear of the property as shown here. This was the site plan that we submitted with the application. These owners have spent a lot of time in the land use office working with John and working. Everything so far that's been done on the property has been approved and permitted. And as we said, we're here for a proposed tennis court. The recommended size of a tennis court is actually 120 feet long. The actual playing surface is 78 feet long. And it's recommended that there be 21 feet on either side to complete the court before the fencing and other barriers. In light of the setback limitations, when they go east-west on their property, these owners are asking for relief in the form of a variance to construct a court that is only 100 feet long, which is 20 feet less than recommended. They have had a partial concrete pad installed on the property that's 90 feet wide. So instead of 190 feet long, that completely complies with the regulations. So the basis of this variance request is a 5-foot extension on either side, on the east side and on the west side. And you can actually see it here where the setback lines intersect with the court to be able to complete less than recommended, but still an adequate size tennis court. The regulations in the R1 zone, this property is located in the R1 zoning district, actually allow for things like a patio, concrete pad, driveway, other hardscape surfaces to be constructed anywhere on the property without regard for setbacks, as long as those items are not constructed more than 18 inches off grade. This pad, as we stated, the current pad that's there was constructed with approval and is not 18 inches off grade. But what requires the variance is under section 2.8, a playing court, even if it's a concrete pad playing court, must now meet the setbacks. And the owners are seeking this relief to accommodate their daughter, who has a severe allergic condition, which has led and can lead to anaphylactic shock from simple things like contact with other individuals and contact with surfaces. So tennis has become a preferred sport because it can be played without having contact with other individuals. There's a lot of separation. And so this is a situation where the family and their daughter in particular cannot use many town amenities that almost all others can enjoy in Madison. So part of this request is indeed seeking a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disability Act and being allowed to have a tennis court on their property. The variance request is in two different components. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute. First, even though, as we said, the tennis court will be constructed on a concrete pad, basically they pour the pad and then they add a thin layer of the anti-slip material, less than 18 inches off the ground. It's required under the zoning regulations to meet the full setbacks. The setback that's applicable is a 30-foot setback, and they're requesting a variance to have the surface be located within 25 feet of the neighboring boundaries. And second is the proposed fencing, which is 10 feet high. Again, it must meet the setbacks. We provided a copy of what the fencing will look like in our application package. It's a black nylon fence, similar to what's shown in the photograph here. So it's a very unobstructed fence that is consistent with many other types of similar sport court applications. Again, under the regulations, a 6-foot high fence would be allowed anywhere on the property, including right up to the neighboring boundaries. But in tennis, 10-foot fences are recommended and are the standard. And I think it's reasonable that the standard is more appropriate, having a 10-foot fence when the court is a little bit smaller to reduce the amount of balls that fly over. So as part of this application, the hardship is the implementation of the R1 regulations with respect to this property. Here we have a 1 acre lot, which complies with only 3% building coverage, 3.3%. A simple concrete pad of this exact dimension, 100 by 40, where if it was a patio would be allowed as of right. A stamped concrete patio for cooking, entertaining could be constructed literally right up to the property line. Once it becomes a court, it requires a variance. When the regulations impose this type of unfair, unjust burden on a property owner, limiting them from what could be considered a reasonable use, that can be the basis to substantiate the granting of a variance. With respect to the fence, again, a 6-foot fence is allowed. However, 10 foot is recommended, and when you have a court that's smaller size, that's what they're requesting. They've chosen a style fence that, with the nylon as opposed to black chain link, is unobstructive. And as shown on the plan, it will be surrounded by a hedgerow of hornbeam plants, which is very similar to what we showed in the photograph. I haven't shared that one yet. Just have to get to the right one. Surrounding the fence, the hedgerow will reach up to the limit of the fence, but obviously it will soften what the fence looks like and provide screening for the activities within the court area. A similar zoning district, which is R2, which also has a substantial amount of area in Madison, south of Route 95, also requires 1 acre lots, has a 40,000 square foot minimum. And in that zone, only a 20-foot setback is required. So we have two different zones which require the same amount of acreage, basically in the same parts of town. R1 and R2 are kind of interspersed all south of 95. And if this property were in the R2 zone, what we're proposing here would be allowed as of right. So but the general standard, as you know, for granting a variance is if there's exceptional difficulty or undue hardship resulting from the regulations, like we believe we have here, you have the authority to grant the variance. In addition to hardship, the board must consider whether the proposal will have an impact on public health and safety or an impact on property values. And we've seen, we've read, we've reviewed the letters from the neighbors, in particular the neighbor to the east, and understand, I think it's apparent that there's animosity that this development and their activities on the property have created in the neighborhood. You know, we can't stop people from wanting to preserve the way things have been. They took down trees to expand the uses in their backyard, which is completely within their rights. And a lot of the concerns raised by the neighbor letters are not relevant to the Zoning Board of Appeals standards. The amount of impervious that this concrete pad for the court sits on is not an issue in this matter. That's actually not regulated by zoning. If, as stated before, if it was just a patio, it would be allowed even right up to the property line. But we've centered it, the applicants have centered it on the property so that it's 25 feet from the east, 25 feet from the west, so that there's more than adequate room for things like runoff for the water to be able to disperse into, percolate into the land without causing any impact on the neighbor. I think it's important, I mentioned in the beginning, that the building coverage on this lot is well under the standard. It's only 3.3%. So it's an underdeveloped lot to begin with. Some of the other questions we can try to answer as well. The work on this court will take basically a month to complete. So if this is approved, this could be finished, the court could be finished by mid-August. And as we stated before on the plan, and they're working with Madison Earth Care for the landscaping. Madison Earth Care has recommended the hornbeam hedgerow, which will provide substantial buffering. We hope that you understand the bottom line is that this proposed construction will not have a negative impact on public health, safety, or property values. These types of accessory uses are allowed in residential districts. The owners have taken steps. They're requesting basically a variance of 5 feet on either side. They've centered the court so it won't have an impact on either of the neighbors. And what they're requesting should be deemed a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Their child is not able to enjoy the public amenities that are available to all others in the town of Madison. So we're asking the Zoning Board of Appeals to balance their request for an additional 5 feet on each side, 10 total feet of concrete pad versus the rights of the child to have an amenity that many others take for granted. 90% of what they're looking for is allowed, and 10% relief is appropriate and we believe warranted in this case. Mo Srinivasan and Randy Calabrese are investing a substantial amount in improving their property. So we actually think that the developments that they're doing will increase property values, not decrease property values. And we hope that the board will agree that there's a basis for granting of the proposed variances and approve them as requested. So if it's okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mo or Randy just to briefly address the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ed. So my name is Mohan Srinivasan. I'm one of the owners here at 11 Conestoga Drive. And thank you for taking the time, at least today, to hear this on somewhat of an expedited basis. My understanding is the board doesn't meet too frequently, but this is somewhat urgent in the grand scheme of things. I want to first and foremost tell you that my wife and I, although athletic, we are not really tennis players. If I had it my way, I'd probably put up a basketball court. I'm not, because quite frankly, it's not for me. I am overweight, I am really unhealthy, and I work too much. I'm too busy. The reality is the only reason we're putting up this tennis court is for our daughter. We have a 4-year-old that can't be around any of you. She literally cannot really be outside of this house. She has so many allergies. And I can tell you, when we talk about her, I could see it in my wife's eyes. She's probably about to start crying. She has 14 of them. And it's not something that we chose, and it's certainly not something that she chose. But the reality is, out of the 14, it's from dairy to eggs to seafood to fish. You could think about any cheese, sunflower, pollen, apples, pears, eggs. She has carrots, celery, anything you could imagine she's allergic to. And this isn't an analogy where she sneezes a few times and life goes on. Rather, we've at least on 4 occasions thought that we lost her. We've had to consider a helicopter coming into this Conestoga Drive property to helivac her out of here. And that would be the Madison ambulance down the road. They've actually thought and had the discussion with us, you're going to lose your child. And so she survived. And so what we realized is, in order to insulate her, we can't use any of the resources this town provides. We have 2 other children. We have an older one that's at hand, and she could use every resource this town has. And we have a middle child that goes to the country school and he uses the parks and whatnot. But my 4-year-old cannot use a single park in the city. She can't really go to the beach, although she likes the sand. She can't collect seashells because she's allergic to seafood. And she can't go in the water because we don't know what's in there. And quite frankly, she can get into anaphylaxis. So she's really in a prison. And that prison is Conestoga Drive. She can't really leave. We take her to the grocery store, but she can't be in there for more than 5 minutes because she turns as red as a strawberry. And we have to keep an EpiPen on us at all times to ensure if she does in fact go into anaphylaxis, which has occurred on 10 occasions, she has to get the EpiPen and be rushed to the hospital. This tennis court is solely for her because she can't have the luxury of using town campus. We're not asking to do something extraordinary. Quite frankly, there's plenty of tennis courts in this town, but she can't use any of them. She can't use any of the services. So the taxes we pay are useless for my 4-year-old. My 4-year-old has difficulty everywhere in this town, in this state. So we're asking for 5 feet either way. The people to the west of us know our 4-year-old. They asked permission. Hey, can we look at your property? Of course, come on. They had no problem. People to the east, quite frankly, don't care at all. And I don't need them to care because this isn't about caring. This isn't about construction. This isn't about debris and dust. This is about the hardship that our 4-year-old encounters on a daily basis. And I don't think anyone here can tell me that her life is less hard than anyone on the call. She's 4 and she didn't choose it. So she's asking to play tennis. And quite frankly, we do everything we can to accommodate every need she has. So when you look at our property, there's plenty of pictures. One of the things you'll see is there's always cars in the front. Well, we had to hire a private chef because she can't go to a restaurant and she can't eat food from the grocery store. It has to be shipped in. We are very fortunate to have the resources to give her as normal of a life as possible. We have a paraprofessional because she can't go to school. She works full time and she follows our daughter around to ensure that she's safe and healthy. And in the event she does blow up like a balloon, she has an EpiPen or takes her right to the emergency room. All of this is done for the benefit of her having a normal life. The fact is, we just happen to have resources. So when I see neighbors talk about, well, there's a lot of dust and debris. Well, it's unfortunate, but that's part of having a property and doing improvements. Well, there's going to be a tennis court and it might have lights. My 4-year-old is not going to be playing tennis past her bedtime. These aren't normal concerns. We're not asking for very much. We're just asking for a reasonable accommodation, not only from the ADA, but just through zoning and the hardship that she encounters. Because although my wife and I are the property owners, she's also a property owner. She's a resident of this town and she's a resident of this house. And I really just don't see any reason not to approve it. And so I just ask you to consider her needs. And quite frankly, if she wasn't here, I wouldn't be asking for this request because, well, it's not for me. It's for my daughter. And quite frankly, I don't see any reason to not approve it. As our attorney had mentioned, we can easily just make the entire backyard into a big patio. We're not doing that. We have no interest in doing that. We can ask for a fence that's 6 foot and just do it without any notice to anybody. But we're not doing that either because we don't want a bunch of balls flying on our neighbor's property. We're being very conscious as to what it is that we are trying to accomplish. Improvements of the property, just so you know, the initial estimates are an increase of $100,000 to $200,000 in value for our home. Not only is it the tennis court, but it's also the pool. Just like I had mentioned about tennis, I don't swim. I'm not interested, but my 4-year-old really wants to. She wants to learn. The fact that she's incapable of completely and consistently learning because of an allergy is pretty clear that this is for her and not for anyone else. So I'd really ask you to look deep into the reasons why this would be objected to and think what could be more important. A 4-year-old that has a future, that has a very limited capacity, that we're trying to provide every possible opportunity to, or an arbitrary decision to, nah, we're not going to give it to you. I really hope that you think about this case and really approve this, because I just don't understand why it wouldn't be. I don't understand the alternative. But I suspect my wife would have some things to say. Thank you.
Just minimal. My name is Randy Calabrese, and I, as I read the letters that came in, and it was indicated by one of our neighbors that we do not have a hardship. And, you know, I don't think there was a real understanding of perhaps maybe the ADA part of it and the accommodations that we're looking for and the seriousness of our daughter's condition. I questioned whether we had to come on here and bring medical records. You know, I don't want to have to put my 4-year-old's personal information out there for the public, but suffice it to say that we have literally, our daughter has been hospitalized on numerous occasions as young as 5 months old. Allergies are something that people they're on the rise. A lot of people haven't dealt with them to the level that we are, but we had tried to enroll our daughter in a preschool, same preschool that our 2 other kids had gone to. And she literally had to drop out to only being allowed to go to 1 hour of outdoor activity. She is extremely smart. If you talk to her, she talks like an adult because that's who she's here with the majority of the day. So we are trying to give her as normal of a life as possible. We did bring our para, she's supposed to be on the call as well, to perhaps speak to you so you can see the legitimacy. We don't pay somebody full time to be with our daughter from 8 to 5 for no reason. And on top of that, we are actually almost at all times, Mo and I are at our house. One of us is at our house because we are terrified that she's going to go into anaphylaxis. We have an office in New Haven. We brought her to the park next to our office and she went into anaphylaxis. And all the doctors can say is it was probably from a contact with something. For those of you who don't know, milk allergies, which our daughter has, have now surpassed peanuts in terms of being the deadliest anaphylactic allergies. Our daughter has been anaphylactic to dairy, cashews, shellfish, and eggs. Eggs and milk are in almost everything. When we had a birthday party, we tried to have a birthday party for our daughter. We had to have every child who came in this house brush their teeth and rinse out their mouths because there was literally a case where somebody let their friend go to, their daughter go to another house. Kids started playing. Other kids had eaten peanut butter. One kid stuck their hand mistakenly in another kid's mouth. The kids were like 11 or 12 horsing around and they went into anaphylaxis. This is just not, every time we have an opportunity to do something for her to give her a normal life, we try to say yes. That's the reason we work so hard every day. This is not a cheap thing that we're doing. This is a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money. And we're asking for a mere 5 feet on each side. And perhaps because it's the lawyer in me, I feel that I have a duty to at least give you one case that perhaps is on point. And it's Austin versus the town of Farmington, where a variance was granted under the ADA for a child who had a disability, and it was for a pool. And so if there's any thought that, oh, this is recreational, this is fitness. This is not something that hasn't been done before. We understand that maybe it's rare, but we do feel like it's a reasonable accommodation. And by trying to install a taller fence, we're trying to spare our neighbors any issues of, all these tennis balls are flying by. I think maybe people didn't realize that this tennis court is going in, whether it's a 6-foot fence or a 10-foot fence, but we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to beautify it, but we need time to do that. And, so for all the neighbors who are upset about that, we're sorry. It's been really like a struggle during COVID and to get people out there, but we are doing this for our daughter. And we'd ask you to really consider our statements.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I think that's all we have at this time. But if the board has any questions, we are free to answer. What's your para's name?
Marcia Chadwell.
Marcia Chadwell.
Okay.
I don't know if she's on there because we can't see.
I don't see her.
Maria, do you have other people that are attendees that,
I can see if she's here.
She's trying to, perhaps if other people have questions, she's trying to get in. She's saying she's not in a good service area. So I just told her to try to see if she can reload and get into the meeting.
I don't see anybody, Marcia.
okay,
I do have somebody on a phone, but I don't know who it is.
Is there a number for someone to call in?
Yeah, they can call in. It's on the website.
Hey, John, I have a quick question for you. The 6-foot fence requirement, or the height requirement for a 6-foot fence, that's for a permanently installed fence. Is there anything that would prohibit a temporary 10-foot fence? So when they were using the tennis court, they could extend the fence to 10 feet, and then when they were done, they could withdraw the fence back down to 6 feet. Would that violate regulations in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so, Jason, because it wouldn't be considered a structure because it wouldn't be permanently mounted to the ground. The 4-foot fence would. That would be a permanent structure. If it were 4 feet or 6 feet, even at 6 feet, it would be a permanent structure, but it would be allowed. Anything above the 6, if it's temporary, like the netting, it's not permanent, and I don't think it'd be considered a structure. So
a 6-foot fence with a temporary 4-foot extension would not be in violation of the zoning regulations.
no, not that I see right now. That there's nothing that I could see in the regulations that would prohibit that.
And then we wouldn't have to worry about that variance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that's the same thing that I spoke earlier today with Ms. Calabrese about. So we talked about that possibility. Now let me ask, the fence is right up against going to be right up against the pad?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah, they're basically in
So
the same.
And
edges would be on the
that's why the offset variance would be the same level. So, so this strikes me as odd. First of all, maybe Maria, before we go into that, are there other people that we need to invite on that are putting up their hands? Do we need to open it to other people to
I don't see any.
make comments?
Well, if you wanted to open it to public.
We have to open it to the public.
Yeah, we can,
If
Ned,
the applicants had somebody else that they wanted to speak, I'm not seeing her in the list.
We're trying to get her on if she's going to try to call in. Can she speak after you open it up to the public?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
in open right now, actually. So
she
we
can
never
speak.
went.
Yeah,
We
we're not
never
closed.
Yeah, we're not closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Are we in the period, Ned? Are we in the period where we can ask questions?
Yes.
We
Great.
could, yeah.
I'd like for the applicants. I understand that the desired size of the tenant. So right now there's a 90-foot pad in place, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
And that pad is completely within the setbacks, right?
yes,
But we want to
Yes.
make it a tennis court, so we need to extend that pad 5 feet in each direction over the side yard setback. That's correct?
yes.
And we are at grade, below grade, we're 18 inches. I mean, I read one of the letters again said you were like 4 feet above grade. Is that, I mean, there's no pictures.
So it's, that's not true. So our excavator was given very clear instructions to dig and then rebuild so that the property maintained the exact same grade as it had previously. And so although it appears to dip, it actually does not. There was between the west and east, a 6-foot drop naturally on the property. But if you look at it now, if you see before and after pictures, he dug up the earth then put the concrete down after crushed stone. It's actually been raised back to the way it was prior to the project starting.
And it just doesn't.
I'm
so
sorry,
they all-
I did not decide to go wandering in your backyard. I kind of looked around.
If I could just speak, the people who came today, Dennis and Ned, I believe, could see that there's a berm, that some of the dirt was pushed back to create a berm against the back part of the property, and there's still some extra dirt. So I mean, there's evidence, showing that the earth that, that had been dug up, and that's the way it was
And not
before. It's
getting
just more
close.
obvious.
So continuing forward with my attempted reasoning here. So one of the great things about having Zoom is that I have the marvels of the internet in front of me. And it looks like the 120 feet, the actual length of the tennis court is 78 feet, right? So that gives you, the 122 feet gives you, it's a long day and 20 foot on each side, right?
21.
21 feet on each side for various things that have to do with tennis. I also don't play tennis. If it was a baseball field, I would be an expert. So it seems to me as if a tennis court that's to support a 4-year-old, you don't particularly need that extra 21 feet beyond the baseline, and you could fit the court in there. Is there a reason why we're not just taking the regulation court, putting it in there, and operating within the setback, even though the recommendation is 120 feet?
Mo, I'm just going to clarify one thing and then you take over. So just to clarify, if you actually want to play tennis on the 78 feet, you would not be able to actually serve because that's the serving.
Right. No, that's the baseline. Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
so when they say playing surface,
So that only gives you 6 feet beyond the baseline in which to operate.
no, it gives you nothing. What we have right now.
The 90 feet, the 90-foot pad only gives you 6 foot beyond the baseline.
Mo, do you want to?
Yeah, so it gives you 6 feet beyond the baseline, and that's accurate. However, 6 feet conceptually,
It's not enough to do it. It's not enough to make it a usable tennis court.
right? 6 feet conceptually is a lot different than when you're there and you realize.
No, I
6 feet
Yeah,
even
I got you. Like I
So-
said, I'm a baseball person. I got you.
And the other alternative, right? And this is, we try to be practical in these things, is that I guess we put down a concrete patio for the rest of it and play with that. And this is going to look really crazy over there. But literally, what your zoning regulations say is that we can actually just now extend, put a concrete pad there, like a patio, and call it a day. But is that just because she's 4? Most of the kids these days, I don't know if you have younger, what age, these kids are starting sports at very young ages. And in all likelihood, our daughter is going to be stuck homeschooling. Most of the kids with allergies this severe, they homeschool. So yes, we'd like her to be able to have the opportunity to flourish in whatever she chooses to do. And if you get accustomed to doing something on an irregular sized court, it will impact you.
Can
Yeah,
I make
and-
one follow-up?
And she won't be 4 years old for long.
No, like I said, I'm
God willing.
a baseball parent, and I understand where you're coming from with that argument. And thank you for answering my question.
I just had one follow-up point. 120 is recommended with 21 feet on either side, but they're asking only for 100 feet, which is 11 feet on either side. So they've already tried to reduce it to the minimum amount necessary for reasonable backyard tennis court.
And we're not asking for a doubles court, just to the extent that that matters. We are taking a minimal approach.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Since you
So-
said you don't know tennis that well, I'm just trying to give you, that was something that was picked up on today as well.
Okay, so I would like to take something that was said earlier by Randy there. John, maybe I could ask you. The understanding that Randy said, she could put out a patio there and make it whatever size she wants and call it a day. If that were done somewhere, and then some indeterminate time period later, in the middle of the court or that patio, they happened to put up a net that went across and played tennis across that net. does that somehow violate anything?
Yes. Well, by
So-
putting a net up, you've created a recreational surface, not a patio.
Mhm.
There's a difference. In the
I
regulations.
understand. If you build
Yeah,
it.
but if you put a net, if
Get-go.
you put a net up, you're inviting play, right? You're inviting
Mhm.
recreational activity. Then it becomes a recreational surface. That's what's controlled by regulations as far as the setbacks are concerned. Now, I mean, think of it as a pool. So a pool is also regulated by setbacks. So, but that's to the water's edge. So only the water's edge has to comply with the setback. If someone were to put a patio or a walkway around that pool, if it were less than 18 inches off the ground, you could put it right up to the property line.
Okay,
Because the water is the surface. The recreational surface would be the playing court.
which is
So
78
is the
feet
thing that
long.
defines the playing court here, that non-slip surface that goes on top of the concrete?
Yes.
Yes,
But the playing surface is 78 feet long, so it's not in
No,
there.
plus the end lines. The area beyond the baseline is part of the
Right.
playing surface.
Well,
Baseline to
not, I guess
baseline
not
is-
according to the tennis
Okay,
association. If what Mr. Brown was saying is the 78, could the rest arguably be akin to what's around the pool? But we're here because we want
that's
to make.
exactly what I'm asking,
But
yes.
what I'm understanding is that so Ms. Calabrese, what I'm understanding is that the literal interpretation of the rule is that any of the surface that is covered with the non-slip coating, with the hard court coating that goes on a tennis court, would be considered part of the playing surface. That's the literal interpretation of the zoning regulations. Is that, John, is that how, am I interpreting that correctly?
yeah, the way it's written, that's right.
Okay.
Recreational surface.
Okay, so it's would be judged mostly by the coating that you put on there.
By the code, right.
I think if I
The
may.
coating wouldn't matter if it was a different coat, right? If it's concrete, then it's still gonna count, even though it's not that non-slip surface. It's like if we wanna, doesn't matter what we put down as long as we're playing tennis.
That's
on it.
not what that's not the
Yeah.
interpretation that I'm following, that I'm leading,
Yeah.
that I'm leading on here.
Yeah.
I'm leaning that if we use the pool, I mean, and John, you can stop me if you believe I'm incorrect. If we use the pool analogy, that the pool is defined by where the water ends, right? That's the end of the recreational area. And then anything beyond that is not part of the recreational area.
Yeah.
So the coated surface would be the end of the recreational area. And then any concrete beyond that would not be part of the recreational area because it's not coated. Is that how that's a correct interpretation here?
Yes,
John, but if we had the playing surface just be concrete, then it would be essentially limitless, right? So long as there's a tennis.
So
well,
long
if
as
if there's not a net or basketball hoops on either end.
No, that's
Or-
not, I apologize. I think I understand what they're trying to get at. So if the playing surface itself, that 78 feet, was this material that sport court is going to come down and lay down, and then that material stopped, and for the remainder of our property, we just threw concrete on there, would the zoning regulation be violated?
No. The spirit.
That's an interesting question, but
Then do we get
there-
to spirit or literal? And my understanding is it's
Yeah.
supposed to be narrowly construed.
Right.
Because it sounds like if I just have concrete everywhere, it's not playing surface. And that
And if
just,
I put up a net temporarily,
Huh.
then it's
It just
not
sounds-
really,
it sounds,
I think we're getting into the weeds here a little bit.
Well,
I mean,
that's where we
let's-
are.
Let's get back to what we're looking for. We're looking for a recreational court that's looking for some relief for the side yard setbacks, whether it be a temporary net, a permanent net, a a patio around the tennis court, a pool with coping and a patio. I think it's best now to just focus on what we're trying to do, which is just the tennis court, recreational surface. I mean, it can't be 78 feet because the fence would be right up against the baseline. So obviously it has to be wider either way. So I guess the point is how far, you know, 120, I'm hearing is the standard, and you're reducing that to 110. So there's a compromise there.
100.
100. Oh, even more of a compromise. Thank you, Ed.
Marcia is on now, I think by phone. I don't know if you guys can see her.
We can't.
I see a Marcia Chadwell in the attendees.
I see. I'm just waiting to find out whether it's public comment or not before I.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm finished with my round with my questioning and inquiry. Thank you.
Are we entering public comment?
Ned,
Yes. Hey, Rich, I was just wondering if you were here.
I'm here.
I'd like to
Over.
reopen, what are we, reopening the public comment?
No, we never left.
We never left.
We never closed the meeting. So
We
this
never
is time,
closed
would
it,
anyone
so
like?
I may,
Yeah, would anyone
is
like
there
to
a
speak in
motion
favor?
to close the meeting?
No, we
No,
We
take
have
public.
to
Ned,
have
Don't do
public
that.
input.
excuse me, guys. Ned, the board asked questions of the applicant. Now we're going to
there
ask if the public
Anyone else who would
has
like
something to say,
to speak
you know, for
in
the
favor
application or against the
of-
application.
in favor of the application?
And they have to, do they have to raise their hand or whatever to indicate that?
Anybody would like to speak, they can raise their hand and I'll allow them to talk. Okay, make sure that you state your name and address, please. I'm gonna allow Marcia to speak.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay, Marcia Chadwell, 52 Linwood Ave, Colchester, Connecticut, 06415.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to talk about that I'm with Emmy 5 days a week from 8 to 5, and she does not have the ability to go basically anywhere. She is confined due to her anaphylactic reactions that she has. We have been attempting school and she's only able to make it for about an hour before she has to leave. So I just wanted to make it clear that the anaphylactic allergies are very, very serious and they do debilitate her from going out to a normal tennis court or even to the park.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak for the application and the applicants? Anyone who would like to speak against the application? Okay, do we have, do we need to read those letters?
Did Mr. Dornick?
I don't have the letters up.
And Ned, you can just enter the letters.
Okay, can we just enter the letters? There were 2 letters, I believe, or 3 letters that came in speaking against the application. One was from a Mr. Gunn. One was from Mr. Dorick, was it, on the right side? And I think there was another one that was not as favorable. I can't remember the last name.
I do have 2 more hands raised.
And just one thing real quick, the Guns letter was in favor of.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
They just
Randy.
had one question, which our attorney answered about I think the impervious surface.
Thank you.
Okay, I have,
You got two
The
hands up.
yep, I have Mr. Dornick.
Dornick, Dorsick.
Unmute yourself.
I did.
You are unmuted. You can go ahead and
Oh,
speak.
hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can go ahead and state your name and address.
Okay, my name is John Dornick. My wife Lydia is right here. We are 82 and 83 years old. We live at 19 Conestoga Drive. We have lived there for 49 years, okay? I'm opposed to the variance. And I'm looking at the directions on the variance, and it says, describe the proposed application, including work proposed. The work has already been done. How did this happen, John? I don't understand. They're applying for a variance, and
properties.
The cement pad is
is
there.
already in. And it says here in the block on 6, it says the property owners are seeking to install a tennis court at the rear of the property. They're seeking to install a tennis court. Could you explain that?
Sir, do you have some, they're seeking to add to what's already installed there, and they want a little variance for that portion. So they want to add 5 feet on each end. And I think that's what they're requesting as the proposed addition. So are you addressing whether or not that 5 feet should or should not be added?
It just looked it just looked to me like this is putting the cart before the horse. You already have the pad in there. Is that correct?
No, it is not correct. They're seeking a 5-foot extension on that end and a 5-foot extension on the other end.
Which I'm opposed to at my end. I'm opposed to that. And I'll tell you, just let me, Mr. Casella, he said something about me, and I'd like to clarify that. You can ask.
Okay, what we're interested in, sir, is what the objection is to the variance and why that would be.
Okay, I object because that's what I'm trying. If you give me a little latitude, I'll
Yeah, they've been
explain
on
why.
for hours.
Yeah, if you give me a little latitude, I'll explain. What happened this morning, and this is very,
Oh,
very
John,
typical. This is very, very typical. Mohan comes out, he sets up a.
Okay, no, we're interested in what the variance is, okay? That whether or not we should grant a variance, and it has nothing to do with who said what to whom and whatever. It's strictly about the 5-foot extension on each end to determine
Okay,
whether or
let
not.
let me mention the fact that you talked about on grade or 18 inches above grade. The eastern end is about 3 to 4 feet above grade. And that explanation that was given, I don't buy that at all. If you go out there and look at the grade and look at the top of the concrete, you'll see in an instant that it's way, way above grade, not 18 inches.
I did go out there, sir, and you'd have to prove to me that that's above grade because I was there, and it may have been at that end, it may have been a few inches above grade. The other end was below grade. It's just a level thing, and it looked like it was, just that's the nature of, when you have an unlevel yard, you put something in, but it was only a few inches above. It certainly was not 18 inches, and what might happen for the other thing.
Did you look at the
So go
picture
ahead.
I sent you a picture. I don't know if you looked at that. It
Okay,
sure as heck looks like a lot more than 18 inches.
Okay, I'll take another look at it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. What else do we have to say?
We were saying that we don't want to give them that.
Yeah, I said I'm
thing
opposed to
because-
that, and because I think the
We've
regulations
been here for 49 years.
have been taxpayer
And
for
they've-
49
And they've
years,
been here
and
for
we've
8
had,
years.
we haven't had children in the school system for the last 36 years, so we've paid our dues, for sure.
Okay.
Hold on. we can't talk about his behavior because
No,
you don't want to go
talk
there.
about his behavior.
Yeah. What else did we have, Lee?
We don't want to have them closer to us than they already are.
Exactly.
And if they give them the variance, all the people in Madison, they're
It's
gonna have
setting,
to
it's
deal with
setting
all of
a
that.
bad precedent, I
A
think.
bad precedent.
Like I said, the collective intelligence of people that have gone before us, they came up with that regulation. They came up with the setback of 30. There's a reason that it should be 30. It's so that the neighbors to the property have a little peace and a little bit of solitude. You have to consider the neighbors. You know, we put up with an awful lot for the last 3 months, but you don't want to hear about
The
that
thing
either.
I want to talk about, they're talking about their daughter and her allergies. They think that's going to be a good place for her to be playing with the fumes from 95, which are some of the most dangerous fumes you could be exposed to. All the digging and the dirt.
I think that's
that we
irrelevant.
put up
I think
with.
that's irrelevant to this
It's
case,
not
though.
irrelevant to us. It's not irrelevant to us. We've lived there in peace
It's
and
not
never had
irrelevant.
any trouble with
Absolutely
anyone
not
on the
irrelevant.
street.
It's not irrelevant.
The fumes from 95 are irrelevant to this case. So,
Right.
so I looked at the picture again. I see what you're talking about. The elevation of the grade, the stone
like a
that's been
wedge.
dropped is higher. Yeah. So further in where the pad is, I saw that was fairly level. But then that last
If you
couple of
really
feet,
want-
it does.
If you really want to stay at 18 inches, you could have excavated a level area and then put your stone in top.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that necessarily is a requirement. The 18 inches is if they're putting in a patio, right? Am I right on that, John? So if they request a variance, they request a
That's
variance.
Correct. I mean, the 18 inches only defines whether or not a patio or a deck is going to have to comply with the setback. It has nothing to do with the surface, with the recreational surface. It's
Yeah.
actually a moot point.
So I appreciate your concern about the privacy and so on. But I'm not sure. Okay, so if you want to address any of that a little bit as to why that 5 feet would make that much of a difference,
Makes a big difference.
It makes a big
It
difference.
makes a big
Scott. They
difference.
can't
It does
hear
make
you.
a big difference.
They can't hear you, I can tell. It makes a big difference to us.
But
We
it's
have,
there.
in other words, if Dot and I pass, my daughter will be there. If my daughter's not there, I have 2 granddaughters and 3 grandsons. That property will stay in my family, our family. I don't know how long. John's mother lived to be 93. I have an aunt that's 95. We're not talking about, putting up with something for a couple of months. It's going to change our entire property.
So
I.
Okay.
Thank
It's
you.
not like I'm not used to disabilities. I took care of my sister, my mentally handicapped sister for 32 years. I know I had to deal with all kinds of things, and I did it willingly and lovingly.
you're to be commended for that.
But to have
Thank you.
someone
Thank you.
jam something down your throat is
I
unacceptable.
just ask him what he did at 8:15 this morning.
That part's irrelevant. So,
Yeah, I know it's irrelevant. Yeah.
I have one more person that wants to speak.
okay, do you have anything else, Mr. Dornick or
Yes,
Mrs.
of
Dornick?
course.
I don't think we have anything else.
A handicap or a hardship is when you is when you're confined to a wheelchair and you need a couple of feet to build an exit ramp so you can get from your house out. That's a hardship. But if this little girl is gonna go out.
You guys, I
That's
gotta
not
tell
play
you,
along-
enough
and
is
play
Getting
enough.
off
along-
base here.
Okay,
Please, please.
No, if she's gonna go out and play with the fumes of 95,
You've lived there for how many years?
49.
okay, wait, let's.
Okay. We need to move this discussion
Yeah.
on because this
Yeah.
is more personal
You know, it's
than
really funny
anything else.
because they have been
Okay.
talking for literally hours. And
Okay.
we have allotted
All right.
almost no time.
Okay, thank you for
you.
your
We have
testimony.
We have neighbors up and down Conestoga Drive that are offended when they come to the stop sign at the top of Town Crier there.
Okay, so,
We haven't gone to them, they've come to us.
But this is temporary. This is a temporary situation that will be fixed in a matter of 2 months. So
Yeah.
I think
What?
we're
In other
talking
words,
about something
not-
that maybe
they're not
happened in the
going to-
past, but
That's
we're past
that's
that.
enough. That's enough.
So
That's enough.
thank you
No,
very
no,
much
they
for
are
your
not.
comments.
okay, yeah, thank
They
you very
are
much.
not going to
Maria,
worry about John
Maria,
and
would you
I.
like to move on to the next?
Yes,
They do
We
not
can-
need this extra 5.
Thank you,
I
Maria.
have John
Thank you.
Mauser next.
Mazer?
Mazer.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
My name is,
State your
my
name
name
and
is,
address.
okay, man, my name is John. My wife's name is Patricia. We've lived at 42 Conestoga Drive for 49 years. We've paid taxes for 49 years. And we would like to see the neighborhood stay the way it's been for 49 years. To be quite frank with you, everything's become an eyesore in the neighborhood. When you come up Town Crier Lane onto Conestoga Drive, it used to be, a quaint little neighborhood, and that's the way we would like it to stay. We paid taxes, and we paid our dues as well. And we're up in age, and we would like everybody to get along on the street in peace and not have to. My feelings are, if you want a tennis court, if you need a tennis court, go to a tennis court, or build a tennis court on a piece of property someplace where it could be used. My sympathies are with their daughter, of course. We have a 9-year-old grandchild who has problems as well. My grandson, who's 13 years old, has CPTSD as well as DID. Now, if any of you people could look that up on the internet and know what that is, that's a bunch for a child to handle. And we've been handling that child for 9 years now. And he's the smartest guy going, but it's a tough thing for him to get along. And, we try our best with him, and we try our best with everybody in the neighborhood. And quite frankly, we've seen this little girl go up and down the street in the stroller. So my only question is, if it's that bad for her health to be out in the fresh air, why is she going up and down the street? And that's putting her at jeopardy. My wife's a nurse. My wife knows about health conditions and things like that. And the
Pollen.
the pollen in the air would be the worst thing for her. I would try to keep her out of the air as much as possible.
Well, I don't
No,
want to
I'm
make
concerned.
John-
I'm concerned. Everybody's here is concerned for the little girl, a 4-year-old little girl having a bigger tennis court. And I don't think she, quite frankly, at her age, knows what end of the tennis racket to use. And
Yes, she
sometime in the
does.
future, yes, and sometime in the future, I'm sure she will, because she seems to be a very bright little girl. But At the same time, I hope you plan on staying here for 49 years the way we've been here.
Okay.
That's all I could say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak against the application?
We got Mr. Gunn.
Is Mr. Gunn here? Maria,
Yes,
is Mr. Gunn here?
Mr. Gunn is here. I'm going to allow him to talk.
Thank you very much.
Am I on now?
Yes, you are.
I'm not speaking against the variance. I'm speaking in support of the variance. I've looked at the plans. I've watched as this
The address, please, where you live?
9 Conestoga Drive, just to the east of the
We lost him.
Hello?
Whoop, getting him back.
Okay.
9 Conestoga Drive, just to the west of the property. And I'm speaking in favor of the variance. I've watched this project for the last, up until I left Connecticut for work on May 28th. I've watched this project as Randy and Mo have begun improving the property. And in these times, with any kind of construction project, is very challenging and time consuming during the pandemic. And I've looked at the 5 feet variance and the in relation to my property line, and I see no reason why I would oppose it. And I'm speaking in favor that the variance be approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Against? Anyone for? Okay, well then I'd like to close this.
Well, Can
public-
I just say one thing in response?
Sure.
Putting aside all of the, concern that's been expressed by our neighbors for our daughter. The Dornick's property that abuts where we want to put this tennis court, where this tennis court is going, is actually all overgrown. It's not even an area. There's trees that are way up in the air. And anybody who came on the property today, we didn't focus on that, but you can clearly see it. They have what we used to have, which is the significant portion of the back of their property is just like a jungle, like a forest, you know what I mean? And so they're not even able to use the property themselves that's directly abutting it. So to say that this 5 feet would make a difference is it's disingenuous and it's not true.
Okay, that's probably irrelevant too, so.
Right, thank you.
But, yeah,
I
but I think we have another hand up.
Yeah, okay. Maria? Anyone else in the wings?
Yes, and one more person.
Perfect.
Hey, how you doing?
Good afternoon or good evening.
This is Randall Alquist at 27 Town Crier Lane, which is kind of the bottom half of the T in the community. And I just wanted to speak as a neighbor who loves our community and loves our, I love all the neighbors around us actually. And I'm just hoping, and I don't know if this helps or deters your decision-making process, that whatever is decided, that we can move forward peacefully. I understand the concern on both sides of it, but I also, I'm compassionate with a sick child, and their desire to provide a safe environment for her to play. And, I think that because things haven't been communicated as clearly as they probably should have between the parties, that it's kind of turned into something that it maybe shouldn't have. Like I said, we appreciate and love our community, and beautifying the community is something that we all try to do to our homes and our yards to increase the values and to increase our ability to enjoy what, you know, we've been given. And, you know, it seems to me silly to put in a tennis court that can't be used. It would be really difficult to play tennis if your back was against the fence while you were serving. And from what I understand, and this is what my question is that still, if the variance was granted, does that still mean that the fence would be 20 feet away from the neighboring properties?
Yes.
25 feet.
25 feet.
It would still be 25 feet from the neighboring property, so that the fence and the tennis court are still quite a ways of distance away from the property lines. That's correct? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that, because I guess my assumption was that it was going to be right upon the neighboring properties, and 25 feet to me seems like it's still a fair amount of distance if you're going to be able to provide access and usability for your children. You know, I think I'm thinking that that's a reasonable, in my opinion, a reasonable ask. And like I said, you know, I'm not one who likes to take sides in these matters, but I think that that's a reasonable ask. And that I hope that whatever is decided, that we as a community can recollect and try to embrace each other and really enjoy this beautiful community that we've been allowed to be a part of. Both the Dornicks and Randy and Mo have been great neighbors. I feel lucky to be a part of the community. So if that's valuable, I hope that you can use it. And if
Thank
not,
you very, very much. It's good to hear that, Randall.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other speakers? I'd like to move this portion. Yes.
Are you, I just want to confirm, this is Ed Casella. Are you closing the public hearing or just the public comment portion?
The public comment period.
Okay. The Dornicks have their hand up again.
I'm sorry, I can't see anything.
For the record.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, let's let the Dornicks.
Are they?
Please limit your comment.
Could you let them in, Maria?
Favor or against?
Okay.
Mr. Dornick, could you please stay on point tonight, this time?
You're on mute. Dornicks are on mute. I don't know if they're trying to talk, but
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hear you
Yes.
now.
Oh, okay. I guess
2
it was on
minutes.
mute. I'm just, Randy Calabrese said, made some comments about the trees in my backyard. If you know,
That's
what
how
is the
everyone's
relevance
back.
of that? It has nothing to do
okay,
with these setbacks.
Thank you.
You are correct, sir. And I made that point when she made that
Yeah,
statement.
okay.
Thank you.
thank
That
you.
wasn't relevant.
Thank you. We're in agreement then.
Okay.
They cut
yeah.
down 27 trees, and Mohan told me that, or I wouldn't know it. Every single tree on the property.
Okay,
And
thank
of
you.
course,
the number of
Let's
trees,
move on here.
number of trees on the property is an irrelevant item.
That's
So-
what we're discussing.
Well,
Yeah.
neither
The-
should our
Please.
This
trees
variance
be
is not
relevant.
about trees, so
Please.
let's move on.
Then why did she bring it up?
Order, please.
We rejected it.
Okay,
Don't-
thank you, Mr. Dornick.
I don't.
And
I move to close the public hearing.
No,
So-
no.
No,
No, you're gonna close the public portion of the
We'd
public.
like the
hearing.
I move to
public
close the public
portion
portion.
of the,
Public comment, yeah.
hearing and move into our deliberations.
No, not yet.
Second,
No.
whatever.
Do you want to move into the deliberations already? Is
Yes.
there any more
We want to
questions?
have discussion, internal discussion.
Or do we have any more questions for any of the people presenting?
Can I just have a chance to wrap up? This is Ed
Sure.
Casella.
Sure, Ed. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to point out a few things just to make sure it's clear. I shared my screen again so you can see the survey here. And you can see the relationship with where the proposed court is up against the rear boundary setback, Dornick's house here. If it wasn't clear, Stephen Gunn lives in the property immediately to the west of Mo and Randy, who spoke in favor. And you know, there was a question and comment regarding the grade, and you know, we're lucky to have topo on this survey, so you can see, although there is a slope from west to east, the area where the court is generally fairly flat. You know, 111 to 110 here. So yes, there was excavation done, and as Randy said early on, stockpiling, but the end result, just to confirm, because there were questions, is that this is going to be at grade and basically the same grade that's there now. All right, and you could see based upon the survey that they're building it in a flat area.
Yeah.
Variances do not set precedent, right? I think we've laid out a fairly unique, very unique fact pattern in this case for what we believe is the legal basis for you to grant the variances. And so another property owner who's trying to get a variance for something would need to similarly make a case about what their specific facts and circumstances are.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think it's important, I made the point in the beginning, Randy and Mo have gone through each step at a time, worked with John, understood, okay, this is what they can do, this is what they can't do, you get to go to a variance for this, health department, all of the steps. So I think that the term was used, this is being jammed down the throat. And, you know, we definitely disagree with that. This is not being jammed down anybody's throat. This is a very deliberative process. And, you know, we appreciate all of your attendance and attention this evening, listening to what's going on with the facts and circumstances. I don't know if Randy or Mo have anything very brief to add in conclusion, but I want to give them the opportunity.
We just thank you for your time. I know this is a very heated area and heated issue, and it probably shouldn't be. And it's simple from our end, and it's probably simple from the abutting property owners end, and we just share different perspectives. But I think our neighbor across the street probably, summarized it quite well. That when we're thinking about their use, what we're talking about is 30 feet away versus 25 feet away. And so, quite frankly, it's so minimal. It's 5 feet, and it's really 10 feet, right? So 5 feet on each side, but we have one of our abutting property owners not having an issue with it at all. The one that does, quite frankly, it is 5 feet. And I hope they're here. I hope they're beneficiaries and their grandchildren and everyone else is here for forever. I don't think that 5 feet with the fence that we are considering, and more importantly, the trees that are going to surround it are going to affect it anyway. I mean, quite frankly, it probably make the area quite frankly much more beautiful. So I do appreciate your time, and my wife would want to chime in a little bit.
Yeah,
I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for the people who were able to come out and see it for themselves, because I think it's gives you a better perspective. And just to make sure that you can ask us any questions if there's any confusion about the depth, the significance of our daughter's issue. We're happy to clarify if you have a particular question that's relevant to this.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I would like to mention, I don't know if anybody wants to add a further comment. There's an ADA regulation, USC code, 42 USC code and whatever. Within there, it doesn't really talk about home type facilities, but it does provide a definition of disability, which says that the term disability means with respect to an individual, A, a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities of such an individual. B, a record of such an impairment, or C, being regarded as having such an impairment. But it doesn't, there's nothing that constrains or actually firmly identifies how ADA would fit within the definition of hardship. And that has to be a judgment call on the part of the panelists. So, I wanted to bring this up during this section because I did want to get, if somebody had if anybody has a particular comment on that, because Mrs. Dornick did mention the idea that a hardship would be, somebody who needs a ramp to get in and out of the house. So that as has been done in zoning issues in the past, John has informed me that people have come up with that as a viable hardship that says, I can't get in and out. And so now, if in fact a similar type situation exists where a 4-year-old can't go to their facilities and needs to have a facility of her own, does that, I think the question now becomes, does that constitute a hardship that would warrant a variance? And I think we'll have to discuss this a little bit in our closed session, but if anybody wants to, has any other comment on that, I'd welcome that.
Dennis, I was thinking about that as well, and what I saw in here that interested me is it said the request could be, wait, the variance is a reasonable accommodation. So I guess that's what the board has to consider, okay. Isn't it? Is it reasonable based on the testimony that the daughter can't go public really at all? Is it a reasonable accommodation?
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I read it. I'd like to
just
hear what everyone else thinks. Yeah, we'll
Could I-
discuss it, I guess, when we close it.
Could I just make a comment there? I'm not an expert, and I don't know if anybody on this panel is a medical expert that would deny. Obviously, as a parent, you would want to do everything to protect your child, be they healthy or have some type of physical, not disability, but physical ailment that could preclude them from participating in activities. And I have some firsthand knowledge of this. I'm not certain, is there a medical order that says you're not allowed to go to school? Is there a medical order that says you're not allowed to hang at the playground? Or is this a parental? You know what I'm getting at. I mean, there's no medical evidence. I do have 2 grandchildren with the same identical disease or the same identical ailment. And, one plays on 2 hockey teams. Also, the other one just finished his 2nd year of Montessori school.
Understand that.
And so, I don't know if it's a parental issue or whether it's a medical issue. And I don't know without a medical letter or with some type of medical evidence, we will get it to the bottom of the disability, the federal code, because what one parent might want their kids to be involved in may not be the same thing as the other set of parents might want to have their kids involved in, but they both love their kids, both want their kids to be active and do everything that everybody else can. So that's my only worry about going into these deliberations.
Mr. Moore, can we just respond just for one moment on your concerns relating to that? I think my wife wants to say something about the allergy, and I'd like just briefly to say something about the ADA and some of your concerns, but Randy, if you want to touch base on what you wanted to say in response to.
Yeah, I mean, so there's certain kids, depending on the extent of their allergies, certain kids are contact reactive. So when we're saying she's allergic, right? I just want to clarify something that my husband had said. She is contact allergic to food. Some kids are just allergic by ingestion. And so when we said that she went into anaphylaxis at a playground, our doctor said, you have to really stay away from public places like that. Even a kid jumping into a pool after they've eaten a bunch of yogurt, if there are enough particles on that kid's face that they get into the pool, the chlorine does not break it down. So it's not necessarily a matter of whether we want her to do that. She actually can't stay at school. Her doctor recommended that she be pulled from the full day program she was at in New Haven because because of the level of the reactions. And so when you look under the ADA, you have to, it's a very fact specific inquiry because of this issue, right? Because certain things you can have a similar condition to somebody else, and maybe it's not as limiting. For someone like Emmy, that's our daughter, she actually has cross reactivity with food. So when we say she's allergic to birch pollen, she can't eat apples because her body identifies that as the same as the birch pollen. Sure. So it's not the air really, but if she comes into contact with other people who are eating these foods, somebody's, that's really what the risk is. So when she went into anaphylaxis at a park, someone must have had something. They they ate peanut butter, they had it on their hands, then she touched it. And for some kids like Emmy, that's how severe it is.
Wow. I'm well aware of that. But again, thank you. And as I said, I have empathy with you regarding that. And so.
So just for a moment. So what Randy had mentioned, no, it's not an arbitrary decision between she and I. Quite frankly, she and I are very educated. Everything to us, to the point where we love college, we love master's programs, we love anything you read, anything. But we can't have that for our daughter because the doctor says she can't go to school. And so that's not an elective thing, that's mandate from the doctor. Similarly, when
well, that's all I was getting at. But
one other area I just want to raise briefly is when we talk about the ADA, there's a section, it's 504. And 504 of the ADA directly addresses allergies, asthma, and anaphylaxis being completely covered. When we talk about the ADA, we're not asking for you to perhaps make town campus more accessible to Emmy, because that's actually cost prohibitive. Rather, we're taking the ownership and addressing the ADA concerns on our own, right? We're paying the bill and we're saying we're going to do it. And what we need from you isn't money, right? Because the ADA would essentially require you to do something like that. Rather, we're saying, if you let us do it for our own daughter, we need our 5 feet. And so, yes, the ADA protects us, and 504 is actually quite clear relating to that. But quite frankly, I just want to be candid that we're not asking for a handout or anything like that.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So one other question, John or Maria, either one of you. I cited that 42 USC. Do I have to provide a copy of that for the record or not?
We can put that as a record. Yeah, I'll put that in as a record. Ed,
So
you're all right with that, Ed?
Yeah, of course.
I'll get a PDF copy and send it off to Maria.
And
I'll get a PDF copy and send it.
Okay,
off to
all right. Since you're the one that sent me the link. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right.
And I think it's important too that as I explained when we were going through the application in the earlier part of the meeting, from our perspective, there is a hardship here, which is, how the Madison zoning regulations with respect to this type of improvement apply to a property. And, when you have a situation where you could have a concrete pad or a patio right up to the property line, and now all of a sudden a court requires a variance, is that an unjust or unfair burden on the property owner that is exceptional difficulty, right? I think we can prove that. The reasonable accommodation under the ADA, there is, since the question was asked, under the Fair Housing Act, that brings in the ADA. And so zoning boards of appeals and other public entities are required, I think Richard made the point, to make reasonable accommodations. So it's well within your discretion as to what reasonable accommodation is. If this was a beach lot that was 6,000 square feet, would a 4,000 square foot tennis court be reasonable? Right? No. There's a fairly clear line. But when you're looking for two variances of 5 feet on an acre plus piece of property in the rear of the property adjacent to 95, you know, it's really the same. It's a similar consideration to what you have under section 8-6, which is, hey, how's this going to impact public health, safety, consistency with the comprehensive plan? So there are several bases for which the board can approve the variances. And,
Okay.
and we hope that you see that.
So Ned, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public portion and go into deliberations.
I would like to have that seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And would you like to start the comment?
Yeah, I guess I would. You know, I struggle with giving variances willy-nilly, and I do understand that people who are next door to them have, you know, some right to privacy, and they have some right to expect that the laws that are on the books be enforced, and they be enforced through a you know, a rigorous application of the zoning. But there's also a procedure for zoning variance when there are issues, hardship issues that come up. And as Rich had stated, the idea of a reasonable accommodation, you know, it's hard to make an argument that given 5 feet more of a court that is not, you know, it's not obtrusive, it's not a you know, any more of a sporting activity with the extra 5 feet than it is without. There's still the tennis going on and so on, and I think the you know, the ball's going to be bouncing and whatever. And I find, you know, some reason to believe that 5 feet is a reasonable accommodation. As far as the fence back there, I think that either all of it or part of it could reasonably be a temporary structure that, you know, that possibly you take it down at the end of the fall, in the season when you're done, and then you put it back up in the spring, you know, or maybe you know, you have it up and down on occasion. But I don't know that you necessarily need a permanent structure there for that. But you know, so but other than that, that's, I mean, I tend to think right now, but we need to discuss it, but I tend to think reasonable accommodation fits here with that 42 USC code and so on.
So I'm in line, Dennis, with you on the fence. I think that a 6-foot fence does not require a variance, but the 10-foot permanent fence does. I think that some sort of, and I've seen them. I mean, I'm currently looking to build a batting cage in my backyard using temporary fencing that can come down. So that's, I know it exists, and I know that it's, you know, only it's not even nominally more expensive than regular fencing. So not granting, you know, the variance for the 10-foot fence, I'm on board with that. I think that literal enforcement of the zoning rules here, I mean, what we're looking at here is a question of use, right? It's two different uses. If it was just a patio, if they wanted to build a, you know, a stage in their backyard out of concrete that was, you know, the majority of the backyard, I mean, it's not a recreation area, right? Until you're using it as a recreation area, right? So I think that granting the variance and the reason that's presented, you know, we're tested, you know, our applicants are testifying under oath, right? You know, so they're telling the truth, and that, you know, their reason for doing this is because their daughter is disabled and she is not able to partake in the normal activities that she would be able to partake using town facilities, whatever and whatnot. That's the condition she has right now. And what we're applying, what's being applied for, and the reasoning for what they're doing it is the key to this entire use variance, right? So if we were to approve this, we would be approving, you know, the use of a large concrete pad with a covering. I mean, that was my whole line of questioning, right? Was the whole, you know, if it was just a piece of concrete and we had a temporary net that we put up and they went and played tennis every day, and then took everything down at the end of the day and put it in a box, will we have a problem? And the answer is no, right? The answer is absolutely not. So I think that the literal enforcement of the code kind of, it deprives, you know, based on that question of use, I think that literal enforcement on the, you know, in applying the zoning rules as they are written for that use, right, which is a recreational aspect, I think doesn't provide reasonable accommodations for the disabled child. I would be in favor of granting the variance. You might have seen me. I had to remind myself exactly how much 5 feet was. I don't, you know, it's not like they're asking to put it right up against, you know, the property line.
Right.
Still 20 feet away.
They're still 25 feet away, and it's going to be and the plan says that it's going to be landscaped. You know, a part of me wants to say yes to the fence too, but with the construction options that are out there, I think that compromising on a, you know, putting up a 6-foot fence with a 4-foot net going around for you know, when the daughter starts to be able to hit the ball out, or if it happens now, you know, is something that can be dealt with in the future. If the, you know, permanent fence becomes a, you know, absolute, or if the temporary fence becomes an absolute problem, then they can come back and ask us to rethink that. But right now, I'd be in favor of approving the variance for the setback for the tennis court, and I would be not in favor of approving the variance for the fence, just based on current construction stuff that's out there. I think that's a simple fix. I think the tennis court is the real problem. The fence is not the problem.
Right.
The tennis court is the problem, and it's a question of use.
Yeah.
So on and so forth, and it's flat, and it's against the ground. I mean, it's going to be landscape, so it's going to be on grade. It's not like it's going to be a raised structure that's 4 feet in the air, right? I mean, the dirt's being brought up. You know, I understand that the pictures that were sent, you know, were not, you know, graphic renderings of what the backyard would look like. But like we've all seen it. We know what it looks like. It's going to be maintained. It's going to be landscaped. It's going to go in with their yard. These folks are the applicants, not these folks. The applicants are committing to spend a significant amount of time in their backyard, right? And they have to do that, and they want it to look nice. So I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to look nice. It's going to be on grade. It's only it's 5 feet. You know, it's 5 feet against the backyard. It's not like it's 5 feet right up against the house. It's not like they're taking the house that's right next to it and building it right up to the edge. It's not a question of, you know, bulk of the structure. It's a use case of a, you know, concrete pad. You know, so like I said, I'd be in favor of granting the variance for the concrete pad and disallowing the variance for the fence.
Who else?
I'd like to say something. I'd like to speak if I could, Ned.
Okay.
So if there were no ADA request involved, I think we would have to say no. I don't buy that it's just 5 feet and, you know, other houses in different zones. I mean, the laws were written the way they were, and I don't think it's necessarily our job to question them. Since this is an ADA request, based on the testimony, I do think it's a reasonable accommodation. However, since it's personal and not with the land, according to this snippet we have here, when the person it is accommodating no longer requires the accommodations, it is removed. So based on my understanding, if we're going to go with an ADA based exemption, which I'm in favor of, I think there's a good case for it. I would be also in favor, though, of when the accommodation no longer is necessary, that it does not pass with the land, because I think if you take away the ADA component, I don't think I would grant the variance. So does that make sense? So I'm actually in favor of all the variances. I can understand why they need a 10-foot high fence, but I think it should be personal and not go with the land indefinitely.
Rich, I think we can condition it. It is in our power to condition it.
Yes.
And we can say that, when the daughter no longer needs the accommodation, that the tennis court be returned to a concrete slab surrounded by a 6-foot fence. The tennis is no longer played, that the usage variance is removed.
Yes.
John, can I ask you something?
Mhm.
We're in closed session, but
Yeah.
you're part of the board.
I'm staff.
So
yeah. You can ask staff.
your staff. So if we go with a personal ADA exemption that goes with Emmy and not with the land, then automatically when Emmy no longer requires the accommodation, it would have to return to, as Jason said, a 6-foot fence, and it would have to, the setback requirements would be back in place. Is that correct?
Well, if the fence is going to be part of the equation. If the fence is not going to be part of the equation, I think it goes to, I think Attorney Casella touched on this earlier about a pool. That was approved as a reasonable accommodation. So I think you have to use your common sense here. If what would you do if the pool was into a side yard by a certain amount, and the disabled person no longer required the reasonable accommodation? Would you fill the pool up? I mean, would you have to cut the pool back so it complied with the setback? I think the board can use some discretion here about how you want to do that. But you're right, Mr. Gilbert. You're right in the fact that the traditional and Ed can attest to this too, because I've learned this in the legal seminars, that the ramp example is the one that we always use. That if a disabled person requires a ramp to enter the structure, at some point in the future, if he no longer requires a reasonable accommodation for whatever reason, it would be removed. But that's a structure in a yard or a side yard or a front yard. This is a pool and a recreational court. So I think you can use your discretion on this. And do it the way you feel is best served.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the same thing that Rich just mentioned on the personal hardship, and that when it's no longer needed, how would you people feel about reverting back to the setbacks?
They can't answer.
Huh?
Well, they can't answer that question.
We have to make that decision.
Yes, I know we do. And but after listening to everybody, I would be in favor of the variance and not requiring it be a personal hardship, and then reverting the tennis court back to within the variance, and not to put that additional hardship on the owners.
Yeah, Bill, I think after hearing what John mentioned about or discretion, and, a ramp you can just easily
Yeah,
remove and make it compliant. It's in the front yard since this is in the backyard. I'm gonna amend what I said before and just say I'd be in favor of just granting the whole thing then, not conditional and not personal.
Okay, great. And I would agree with the variance for the fence, which seems to be very doable with a properly engineered fence. We're only talking about 4 feet that would have to be removed in the fall or whenever the tennis season's over, and who knows. And I think in trying to be accommodative and being reasonable, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to become a member of the board here, I could support the variance given the need for kids to have recreation. And if at this point, it's all she can do is be really by herself and her family, well, that's the best you can do. And, that's the cocoon you have to stay in, and give her the shot to have as much normality as possible.
Yeah, and just for clarity, the fence itself could be 6 feet permanent and 4 feet
correct
temporary, or it could be at their choice. We don't even have to make any comment on this. It could be the full 10 feet or 15 feet or whatever it is, as long as it's not a permanent structure.
Not permanent.
Right. And then we don't have to address the fence at all, other than to say, that we recommend they go to a temporary structure on that. So,
or we could also make it approve the 10 feet permanent fence.
We could
until the accommodation is no longer required.
Yep.
It depends how.
Yeah.
It depends how.
So, okay.
Dennis, would you like to make a motion?
Wait a minute, Ned?
Yes.
If I could just interject something here, I think.
Sure.
The motion, you should have, I would suggest 2 motions,
Okay.
one for the tennis court and one for the fence. So it's clear on the record.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
one motion,
Okay.
for why the tennis court is going to be granted, and then a second motion for the fence, because there's been some deliberation about that fence. So I think it should be clear with 2 separate motions.
Okay,
If you
terrific.
don't
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to make a motion that we end the deliberations and move back to the.
Wait, sorry, Dennis, did everyone? So Ned, you.
We have to close the.
Yeah, I'd like.
What about Dylan?
Dylan is
Dylan's not seated.
Dylan's not a. full
Okay,
member.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'd like
about
to
that.
make a motion that we close the deliberations and come
Second.
back to the public. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, Dennis?
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for variance for Madison zoning regulation 3.60 for allow a 25-foot side yard setback. So that would be east and west, where 30 feet is required for a tennis court. I would like, this would be compliant with the ADA requirements, 42 USC definitions of disability, and for reasonable accommodations.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
So I would like to make a motion that we reject the request for variance for Madison zoning regulation 3.6D for a 25-foot side yard setback east and west where 30 foot is required for the 10-foot high fence, recommending instead that a temporary structure be used for the fencing and for tennis enclosures.
Second.
Anybody want to comment on that, the wording or whatever?
So there's not going to be a permanent.
If we do, if we do that, are we going to not allow does that disallow a 6-foot fence?
No, it does
The
not.
permanent
No.
fence?
The
And
regular
it-
zoning requirements still apply there, and then that's a 6-foot
Okay.
fence is still possible, and they would use temporary structures however, for
To
however much.
achieve whatever height they need to get to.
Mhm.
Can I just, yeah,
Well, state your objections or preferences.
I'm just thinking about aesthetics is if you build a 6-foot fence, and I don't know this at all, but if you build a 6-foot fence and you build 4 foot that's temporary on top of it, I mean, are we setting up here for a aesthetic messy looking fence, or are we not? I'm just,
I
think in
think that they'll be able to handle that and address it with whichever option they choose.
And it kind of looks like the fence that they proposed is temporary anyway, although I don't think it is.
Well, the one that's shown in the picture does look like it's, possibly a temporary structure, I don't know.
Yeah.
all right.
So I think we can ask them at this point if that was a temporary fence in that photo. Can we ask them, John?
Yeah, we're in public hearing
We're in
again.
public portion again.
Yeah.
So Mohan or Randy, do you know if that photograph was the fence in there was a temporary fence or a permanent one?
So that is actually a permanent fence insofar as the rails on the left, right, and top side, metal rails are permanent, whereas the internal mesh is just attached to the rail. So that can be removed, but the structure itself is permanent.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what we're really most concerned about.
Yeah. I think to Jason's point earlier, that he's got the batting cages, which is a temporary structure, and I'm just the idea of a permanent fence that's 10 feet high. Just I don't know if there's a reason, if there's a rational.
If the full 10 feet of the fence was inside the setback, I don't think I would care. Right. The fence supports the use, and I think that you can support the use without violating the zoning regulations.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll go with you guys then. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying, guys.
Does anybody else, do any other members have a comment on that? I mean,
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay. So can we move the motion?
Yeah, second.
I already,
All in
we already
favor?
got this-
Motion.
we already got the second. All we need is to call a vote.
All in
What was the
favor?
motion?
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's
Can you-
get the motion.
Repeat the motion.
Let's get the motion again.
The motion
Yeah.
Dennis made was to not approve.
Let's ask Maria to read it back if she has it. Or Raquel.
I don't have it. I don't.
No, they
Is-
do minutes off of the recording.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
All right.
I think the motion was you denied the fence,
Yeah.
but you could approve it with conditions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't think John, this goes back to the discussion. I don't think approving it with a condition that you can put a temporary fence on top of the existing allowed.
No, you can approve it. You can approve the fence that it be temporary.
The six,
Oh,
you can
okay.
approve
Yeah.
this. Yeah, the 6.6 fence is fine. And
If they come in with a building permit for a 6-foot fence, it's going to be approved. If they feel like they need 4 feet above that, that's their decision to make. When the child gets starting whacking forehands and backhands hard enough that it's going to go over a 6-foot fence, they're going to put a temporary fence above that to the 10 feet.
Right.
And it's not going to take long to do that. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would just, my recommendation, you approved the tennis court with the hardship, a reasonable accommodation for disability. You approve that, and you would approve the fence with conditions that it be temporary.
Yeah. So can we make the motion that we approve the variance for the fence and that it supports the usage, or that it supports the tennis court, with the condition that the upper 4 feet of the fence be temporary.
Mm, I wouldn't want to constrain them like that. If they have a 6-foot fence and the upper 4 feet is temporary, that's
Yes.
easy it's easier if we don't approve it and define what they have to have.
Right.
And let them make
I
the
don't want to
choice.
define, I don't want to direct how to build anything.
Yeah.
So
But
would
that's
like
why I
to
say
see-
if we don't define it as 6
Yeah,
foot
so we'll
permanent
just
and
reject
4
it.
feet, they have the options of going
So we'll
6
just
foot
reject it.
4.
Yeah. So we'll just deny the variance on the fence. And then they can come in with a 6-foot fence and then put whatever temporary structure they want on top of it.
Or just have temporary.
Right.
That's the choice that I
Yeah.
think they'd be permitted. But I have to say that I'm not fully aware of how much there would be for, how many options they would have, or whether that's workable. That's the only problem. I don't, so as it stands, I've got that motion on the floor. Would, do you think
And I have seconded it to just deny it.
Yeah, and it's in the discussion period, so where do we go with it? Do you want to go with that and call the question and vote, or
Yes.
You want to call it? All right, Ned, call for the vote.
Let's have a vote on, we have the
All right.
motion again?
I wish I'd written it down.
Is it just to approve, we don't have to approve the 6-foot fence, we're just going to approve
All right,
4-foot
so
temporary?
no, we're not going to touch. We're not going to
Are
force.
we going to do one fence?
We're not going to force their hand on how they come up with the temporary fence. So the motion
We're
is,
going to reject the application.
the motion is to reject the application for a variance against Madison zoning regulation 3.6D for a 25-yard setback east and west where 30 foot is required for a 10-foot high fence, recommending instead that a temporary structure be applied above and beyond whatever other compliant options they employ.
So, sorry to hammer, this is the last time, I promise I'm going to hammer this, but like John mentioned, we approved going into the setback for the tennis court already.
Yeah, yeah.
Normally I'd say just put a zoning compliant fence up, but we're approving the use, which is tennis, and
yeah,
I can see why you need a 10-foot fence. I'm
Yeah.
just, and I'm worried about the aesthetics too, that we could make things worse by saying 6 foot. That's all I'm going to say. I'm right on the fence, no pun intended. Sorry, that was terrible.
It was.
You must have kids.
So
I do.
So are you thinking that we ought to just approve the fence? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm kind of leaning that way, Dennis, because we already
Uh-huh.
approved a tennis court.
Yeah.
So we said tennis is a reasonable accommodation, which I think it is. So it's like,
if
are we
that-
going to say like 95% of tennis is okay, but we're not going to give you this? It
That's
just
fair point. Fair point.
Rich, you've convinced me.
and
Yeah.
okay. I'm just wondering what it's going to look like too.
No,
but-
it makes sense. It's not logic to do one without the other.
Okay. Bill or Ned?
I think, however we get that 10-foot fence up there on a temporary basis is fine by me.
On a temporary basis. Yeah. So, all right.
Well,
I'll tell you.
it could be
I'll
a
tell you what.
6 and a 4, or it could be a temporary 10. There's a whole
So-
range of things that you can do.
So
But
you're still going with mine. Bill, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think I agree with Rich that I think we ought to make it a 10-foot fence and then,
Give them the discretion.
give them the discretion when they want to take it down.
Well,
Because if we're going halfway with a 6-foot fence
well, they always have the discretion to take it down, but,
and then go with the other 4 feet, I think you're complicating the matter. I think we should
Okay.
just
all right. Okay,
approve it with the 10.
so I will withdraw the motion. Rich, would you like to make the motion?
Sure. I'd like to motion that we approve 3.6D, 25-yard setback,
25.
east and west where 30 is required for a 10-foot high fence as exactly stated in the application.
Okay, I'd like to ask you to amend it to say 25 feet, not 25 yards.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to amend that to say 25 feet. Thank you. Yeah, 25 yards.
Okay, so I think we've already had the discussion. I'll second his motion.
All in
Ed?
favor?
Aye.
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 Wow.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Any opposed? I don't think so.
Well, that was
I agree.
easy.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
That was a long one.
That was a lot of work.
Jeez.
We'll be over for
Can I-
Wimbledon. We'll be over for the Open.
Yeah, I invite us over for
Mr.
that.
I'd like to put a motion for a 5-minute comfort break. Can we
There you
adjourn
go.
for 5 minutes?
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you
Thank you.
very, very
Right,
much.
and for you folks,
And
thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you for your thing
Good
and
luck.
good luck and God bless your daughter. So,
Thank you.
Take care.
so,
Take
yeah.
care.
So can I get a second on my motion for a
Yeah.
5-minute comfort break?
Well, just
Second.
declare it.
Second.
Ned, just declare it.
Okay. All right, we'll be back.
5-minute recess.
Oh, let me see if, I wonder if Tessa's still on there. Chat. Hi, Tessa.
Hey, Dennis, anything that you type.
If everybody sees it.
Well,
I
it's
know.
going to be recorded into the record too. So
Yeah, I'm just saying hi to her. I knew her from years and years ago when my kids and hers were there. So I don't want to put much there, but I thought I'd say hello to her. That's it. I understand we can't be too, make it a social
Yeah, get
event.
some air.
Right. I'll be right back.
Didn't work.
Well, what was that book, John? I just came back. I didn't see it.
No, that's
Did I see it?
that's my how to paint book.
Oh, jeez.
It's one of the great courses that I'm taking. I'm getting ready for my retirement.
Are we talking walls or like pictures?
No, paintings, yeah.
Oh,
Pictures.
cool. Oh, very cool.
I actually was an art major in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really neat. Where are you taking the class?
It's a online class.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, I've got, all the material. It's just getting me back into it. So, I'm taking
Sure.
one of these, one of the great courses. They got really some good courses that are they're reasonably priced and because they're online, but they're, if you know a little bit about it and you're motivated, they're really pretty good.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are hard. And
Yeah, that was a very difficult one.
Hey,
I mean,
I have a quick question here, and this has been bugging me for a couple of years now, and we've never had the opportunity to speak about it with everybody here. So from what I understand with the public comments, is that they're just supposed to be comments. They kind of turn into question and answer sessions.
Yeah.
And it's kind of counterproductive, and usually it doesn't get as heated as the last application did. But can we revert back to, I mean, even Robert's Rules of Order kind of states that like, these are supposed to be like working meetings. And if you go to a Board of Ed meeting or a Board of Finance meeting, you know, sometimes they'll answer questions, but you're not really supposed to. And like, you're directed to not, if you go to like the state training for how to, you know, be government. Can we not let the public comments devolve into question and answer sessions?
No,
Yeah.
you can't.
Were they really?
They have a right to ask
Speak
questions,
on
but they have to ask it through the chair. It shouldn't be an open, you're right, Jason,
Shouting
it shouldn't be
match.
open and uncontrolled. All the questions should be through the chair. They ask a question. They shouldn't talk directly to, you know, to the applicant or any of his disciplines. But they can ask a question. I mean, to your point, I mean, you can give them 2 minutes. You can say, you know, we're going to give everybody 2 minutes to speak. We're not going to go through the same thing twice. So please, you know, everything that you have to say, you know, wrap it up in 2 minutes, and then we'll move on to someone else. I mean, you can control it that way. But you got to let them, you know, this is a public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do have to let them speak. You know, and you have to give them an opportunity to ask a question.
Yeah.
But only through the chair.
But you're right, Jason. We appreciate that.
We can announce that at the beginning of the meeting.
Redirection.
Yeah, I mean, that last one just devolved, and it wasn't relevant.
Yeah.
I don't think
Well, he wasn't controlled, Jason. No one controlled him. They let him go. And this happens with many times here. That's why these meetings go 2 hours. Because, you know, they get off point and they start to meander. And, you know, it's the board's responsibility, especially the chair or the vice chair.
My responsibility.
To pull it in.
So Ned, can I request that we kind of put a handle on that a lot faster?
Mhm.
You know, they can ask questions, but just, I mean,
We can announce that at the very beginning of the meeting.
we
so
can announce it
everybody's
the
on-
next
on
open hearing.
notice.
So let me clarify here. So maybe if we say, if Ned, the chair, says, I yield, I give the floor to, you know, Mr. Dornick or whomever.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, you know, if I yield the floor to them, and then, you know, take the question and say, Mr. Gilbert, do you want to answer that? Or does one of the members of the board want to answer that? And then yield the floor to them. And then the board members yield the floor back.
But
You know?
he was not asking questions. He was just taking shots.
Correct.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's
was
right.
the
And
problem.
that's when you cut them off and you say, that's not relevant to the discussion. You know, do you have anything that's relevant to
That's
the
true.
variance? Why should the variance, you know, which I did, but you know, you feel
But
free
they're
to
both,
jump in and
you know, I don't know,
Please.
80 years
Okay.
old, and they just are.
Yeah, but
talking.
You got to be
that's-
careful though. It is a public hearing though. You got to be careful.
Be careful.
People are
Yeah.
entitled to speak their opinion.
Yep.
It's
Right.
public,
That's right.
even
But
though
you
we're
have
all
to
kind
control
of
it.
hiding on Zoom
Yeah,
here.
yeah, but we can restrict it to what's relevant.
Yeah.
We can, and we
I'm
should.
gonna just suggest something that we have another applicant waiting.
Yeah,
Let's get it
We
going here.
probably should move on and
Yep.
address
Okay.
this
Sure.
application.
Maria, you're in charge. Get them on board here.
Thanks, Maria. This should be good. This should be fast.
We're gonna move over some people.
If this is 2 hours, I'm gonna shoot myself.
This should be fast.
This one should be quick.
Just some-
Don't do that, John. Just paint a picture of it.
Oh, this is Mike's.
Do I join as a panelist or an attendee? Attendee?
There you are, I made you a panelist. Do I need,
Do I need to join as a panelist?
Um,
I-
you-
made you a
Well,
panel.
you can, yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm all set, Maria?
We
can't
hear you.
see you, but other than that, do I need to add Joanne Lynch?
Yes.
Yes?
If she's with us.
If she's with us.
Or it
Yes.
could also be,
I can allow her to speak, or I don't know.
yeah,
She is, she's sick in bed, but I think she would love to participate in some way.
Oh,
Okay.
okay,
I
all
can allow her to speak.
right. So who's presenting?
Yeah, do you want to participate? On your own machine or no?
No.
Oh, she's up here. She will participate with me on my camera.
Okay,
So,
and this is Michael Sulzbach, and I am the agent here, and helping the applicants. And mindful of how long you spent this evening getting to where we are. This may be one of your few opportunities to encounter a true legal hardship, not based on anything but the unique situation of the land and the circumstances here. If you look at, Maria, if you can show us the first map in the application, what you'll see is that, and staff has been over this and over this and over this, because of there's a curious confluence of rights of way that make it so that virtually there is no backyard left except for one, and it happens to be sitting in the middle of a pond in a wetland. And so there is nowhere else on this entire property, and it's a large one, to put the storage shed. And the storage shed, incidentally, does not require a building permit. It doesn't require footings or foundation. You can put it where you want. But where we can't put it is behind this house, because it'll be in the water. That's what brings us to you tonight. What we've shown you is the best place we can find for it, which happens to be the red dot. And it's a small storage shed. It's located, surrounded entirely by woods, not to be seen by anybody. It's not particularly convenient to the applicant, but it's kind of as close as you could reasonably get, keeping it invisible and meeting its real purpose, which is to get outdoor equipment, tractors, lawn stuff, all of that would normally be occupying this stuff out of sight. And we've given you in the application materials both drawings of the proposed building itself in situ. It looks bigger than it does because we had to sort of mock it up. The spec sheet even for its manufacture, which shows that it really is pretty small. It's not illuminated, it's not lighted. It's just a place to put their stuff. We have tons of land. There's no other variance sought, no setback issue, no lot coverage, none of the things that bring us here so often. Just the fact that there's nowhere else to put it. I think that, again, staff has been over. Initially, we thought we could put it somewhere, but we couldn't. And so we have no alternative but to go through the formal process of the variance in order to fairly comply with Madison zoning regs.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we're sort of happy to take any questions you may have.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. So I went down, I didn't drive down I drove down your driveway a little bit. I felt kind of odd going the entire way. My apologies if I seemed like I was a creep.
It's a place where you don't notice anybody, so
I didn't, like I said, I try not to infringe on people's properties if it's not easily seen. Most of them are. Can we explain exactly? So Whedon Lane ends where the driveway begins. Is that correct?
That's right. You'd think that might be the front street, wouldn't you? But it's not.
So which is the front?
There are rights of way that aren't necessarily, built out that surround us that make it so that legally, where we're putting it, for example, is not the backyard.
Is Shorelands the front street?
I think Whedon, front street, really? You mean?
Whedon continues down, and that's considered, the town considers that crushed stone driveway Whedon Lane. That's what the problem
Right,
is.
and we have a Whedon Lane address.
Right. Right, but the
We didn't, when we started this, we had no idea that these other things would have counted as a street for a front yard.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I have a question. I did go all the way in, and I went to the Ring doorbell, and anybody who monitored that probably saw my face show up there. And I did not respect your privacy quite as much as Jason did, but I hope that you would at least understand that it was for a valid purpose that I was wandering around your yard. I did see the backyard. I did see the side yards, and I saw a little tree house over there. And I believe the tree house is on the neighbor's property. The one, so we're probably off that one of those side roads off Neck Lane, right?
That's correct.
Neck Road. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
that
off
belongs
of
to somebody
Shore-
else. So
off
in
of
other words,
Shorelands Drive.
your property is constrained. You have no backyard options for that, obviously. And everything else is in the front yard. I mean, even if you were to take out the pond, it still would be in the front yard.
Right.
So, yeah, so I saw that. And I also wanted to note, for the benefit of anybody who did not get out there, that where this resides, it is almost not visible to anybody else, unless, where that shed would not even be visible to anybody else, unless they were in that tree house next door. Maybe in winter it's a little bit more visible, but it's far enough back in the woods that it's isolated from the neighbors. So it's not like you're driving down my street, somebody's got a shed in the front yard, you go, ew, this is very different.
As far as we know, the occupant of the treehouse is in favor of
Not a squirrel.
this. Well, I didn't qualify beyond occupant.
But he was beating his chest and swinging on vines, and he didn't write very well, so he didn't send a letter in. I get it.
Okay. Well, I was down there and I did take a walk through the property. And again, I agree with both Dennis and Jason. There is no other place to put the shed except in the front. And I will attest that, you will not see anything from the road. You won't see anything from any neighbor's house. So it will be invisible to the naked eye, and only the owners are going to know where the shed is. So mark your trail. So are there anyone else have any comments or would like to ask any questions?
I don't have anything, Ned.
Okay.
Either do I.
Do we have any public comment?
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on behalf of the application?
There are no
Oh,
hands raised.
before Dylan, did you want to say
I'm
anything?
sorry, Dylan, you can participate in this portion. Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. No, I think it's very clear. I don't have any questions.
Okay. So
No members
we
of the
don't have
public?
any positive application remarks. Anyone who is against the application? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to move that we go into deliberations
Second.
and discuss this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, I'll just start and just reiterate, it seems like there is no other place for the shed to be erected. And given that it does not appear to have any negative impacts on any neighbors or, you know, passersby on the road, because there's only the one road in and one road out. I don't think this application should have any problems, and I would be inclined to approve it.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, the idea of a shed is 12 by 14. I've got a 12 by 16 here, and, you know, you can fill it up pretty quickly with tools and riding mower and things like that. So, you know, it's rational.
Okay.
I would approve. I think this is an unusual hardship. There's no other choice really, as we pointed out, so I would be in favor of it.
Yeah.
Great.
Anybody else got any comments?
Jason?
Jason?
You have any comments?
It seems pretty evident to me that the anywhere you would put a shed on this property would be not in the backyard.
Okay. All right. So I move that we
There's no
close.
other.
How about Rich?
There are other options, but the other options are all in the front yard as well.
Yeah. Rich, are you?
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I
In
think
agreement?
little enforcement would definitely constitute an unusual hardship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So,
I'd like to move that we close the public portion, or close the deliberation and come back to the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
So hearing no objections to this, would anyone like to make a motion?
I
Yeah,
move
I
that.
will.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, you can go ahead, Dennis. It's fine.
Okay. I move that we, for application 8262 and 50 Wheaton Lane, we approve the request for variation to Madison zoning regulation 11.1 to allow an accessory building in a front yard.
What's the hardship?
What's the hardship?
Based on the hardship being based on the hardship that there is no other available location due to wetlands that are close to and or on the right on the border of where there are other options.
No, I would suggest that you add what Rich was talking about, that the literal enforcement of the regulations would result in exceptionally difficult and unusual hardship. That's
okay. I will withdraw. Rich, do you want to throw that in there and state it?
Sure. Sure. Amending to Dennis's, the reason is literal enforcement would result in exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship.
Okay, rather than withdraw it, I accept it as modified by Rich.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Congratulations.
Come, this one didn't take 2 hours.
Thank you, panelists. It's much appreciated.
Okay.
Sorry, you guys had to sit through the marathon meeting.
Put a little
Thank you for
GPS
staying with
device in there so you can find it in the winter.
Good point. No, we did pick a location that was invisible to us and invisible to our neighbors. But thank you very much. It will allow me to move stuff out of my garage and start using it again as a garage.
I was so glad when I got my shed put up too. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Pat.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Good evening.
All right, folks.
Like this.
So now.
The next
Now-
order of business is the May, was it May 12th or May 10th?
Minutes.
Minutes. I take a motion.
Okay, before we do that, I'd like to have the minutes reflect in one spot where it referred to Mr. Travis to change those words to Mr. Gulick.
Mr. Gulick, Travis Gulick. Yeah.
That's my only comment. Okay,
All in favor?
well, you
Aye.
need a motion to approve as
Motion.
modified, right?
Motion to approve the
Minutes.
minutes as modified.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Second?
Aye.
Dennis?
I abstain. I didn't read them.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. So what is it? 4 approvals and one
One abstention.
abstention.
I think 4 is enough to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of looking at you guys tonight, so.
Been a long night.
I gotta
But
go.
it's 9:30.
I
It's
have to go
9:30,
stick
John.
I have to go stick a Q-tip up my nose, so we'll be good.
So, okay. Night, folks. We'll see you next month, maybe.
All right, guys. Have a good,
Okay.
have a good month.
Yeah.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
help. Thanks for all your help, John.
You're welcome.